The sweet harmony of birds leads every step of our journey. The journey that brought us to this magical place full of imagination and wonder. The place with a beauty that calms hearts, turns strangers into families, and turns sadness into joy. We started the journey with problems, disagreements, and debates on where to go and what to do. The pride to always be right, and the ego that makes it difficult to communicate. But this place humbled us, melted our ego, and taught us to turn weakness into power, to complete our mission and to achieve our vision. Living together in the wilderness taught us that one of the biggest power we possess is fellowship, the willingness to look after each other, to embrace and support each other instead of doing everything alone. And nature also taught us to keep calm and achieve the best result. The friendliness and the warmth of the locals brought us together. We went beyond friendship. We are now family. We went through many things in this journey. Obstacles, sadness, and stressful situations. But we also experienced happiness. We created togetherness, and we achieved our goal. This experience has strengthened us, shaped us into better people, better than who we were before. One day we will wake up far from here. We will remember the feeling of peace and love, the feeling that tied us to this place, a magical place full of imagination and wonder.
To be part of something bigger than you, to be able to find that meaning and purpose is the reward I get from volunteerism. Much more than how and what I can give the community, I have gained much more than how I anticipated it to be.
Oh, Aliana! Welcome to Maybank Foundation.
Hello, Mr. Ibrahim. It's good to be back here. Trapeang Sangkai is a typical rural community in Cambodia. Much of their livelihood depends on the river and the small inflow of eco-tourists. Improving their environment would help them massively in improving their lives. Planting mangroves is not a new practice here. It's been done for generations, and people know its importance for marine life and protection from natural disasters. Recently, the younger generation had lost its interest in preserving their mangroves. So we began conducting workshops to show them that planting mangrove seedlings as an activity for tourists could be both profitable and beneficial for the environment.
We need one person to fry the fish.
Cambodian cuisine, particularly in Trapeang Sangkai, is unique. We taught the women to hold cooking classes for tourists to earn an income. They were so enthusiastic that even language barrier wasn't an issue.
And then you warm the ginger and you cook all the things and put on top of it.
There are about 213 million young people across ASEAN. Empowering youth unites them and gives them a platform where they can serve not only just their communities, not only their countries, but the entire ASEAN region.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us today. Welcome to the fourth webinar of the Empowering Youths Across ASEAN by the ASEAN Foundation and the Maybank Foundation. How is everyone doing? I certainly hope that you have had a glorious day or evening wherever you are. Let me introduce myself a little bit to you. My name is Bagas Adika Putra, and I am a program intern at the ASEAN Foundation. I am exceptionally honored to be the master of ceremony to the webinar today called the Empowering Youths Across ASEAN. Empowering Youths Across ASEAN is a collaborative program between the ASEAN Foundation and the Maybank Foundation to encourage youths across ASEAN to create meaningful and sustainable impacts to the ASEAN community. Starting from 2018, Empowering Youths Across ASEAN is actually engaging hundreds of thousands of youths across ASEAN to collaborate with local activists and civil societies, boosting such development in the region through the spirit of volunteerism. This webinar series was officially launched in December 2020 with the first episode called Becoming the Volunteer of Change. The webinar series was also continued by the third round called Advancing Social Cohesion and Tolerance through Education and Youth. We definitely hope that you are all able to participate within the previous webinars. If you would like to see our previous webinars, please head over to ASEAN Foundation's YouTube channel or Facebook page. To continue its success, the ASEAN Foundation and the Maybank Foundation are proud to deliver the fourth webinar. This time, the topic is Exploring Youth's Roles to Sustaining Harmony in ASEAN, which includes the key ideas of youth roles in peace-building dynamics by using sports, environmental advocacy, and arts as the main platforms. As indicated in the name, today's webinar focuses on discussing the role of ASEAN youth and communities to sustain a peaceful region. Sports, environmental advocacy, and arts in particular are effective for young generations who might grow up in a world where intolerance and hate prevail, yet could at the same time have the strong passion for life and peace. Arts, environmental advocacy, and also sports have the ability to transcend beyond the scope of borders and time, unifying every single one of us despite our differences under one umbrella of human creation. These three aspects have been proven to be the crucial empowering parts of nations in conflicts all over the world. So the real questions here, our dearest audiences, do you have the interest to pursue your careers or passions in sports, environmental advocacy, or youth volunteerism? Do you want to make the world a better place through championing the arena or championing the arts and performing spaces? Well, this is the perfect time to discuss about sports, art, and environmental advocacy issues because the promotion and protections of youth advocacy must be done collectively. Before we start the webinar, there are some housekeeping matters that I would like to share to you all. First of all, this event will be recorded and live streamed on ASEAN Foundation's Facebook page. Secondly, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them on the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel below. Please do not hesitate to inquire the speakers about today's topics. Moreover, your microphones are muted and your videos are turned off, as this webinar is chat-based only. Lastly, to get your e-certificates, we are asking you to fill out the survey form. This will be announced again at the very end of this webinar. Before we start the event, I firstly would like to give a cordial welcome to Dr. Yang Mi-yang, the Executive Director of the ASEAN Foundation, and Mr. Shahril Azwar Jimin, Chief Sustainable Officer of the Maybank Group. Thank you, Dr. Yang Mi-yang and Mr. Shahril, for joining us here today. On behalf of them, I also again would like to welcome the audiences from all across ASEAN and all over the globe. Now, to enlighten you, we'll proceed to our keynote speakers. The first one will be given by His Excellency Ambassador Ong Keng-yong, the Executive Deputy Chairman of the Astra Jaratnam School of International Studies. The second one will also be given by Dato Dr. Ahmad Faisal Muhammad Firdaus, the President of Mercy Malaysia. Now, may I have the honor to invite His Excellency Ambassador Ong Keng-yong to the screen.
Thank you very much, Bagas. A good day to every one of you out there. I am very honored that I am invited to this particular event for the young people and the young at heart of ASEAN. I am asked to talk about how do we see the empowering of young people for harmony in ASEAN? Yeah, sustainable harmony, sustainable future, sustainable whatever. These are the buzzwords that we are now encountering in our daily lives. So I'm very sure all of you have your own ideas about how we can sustain harmony, how can we sustain the future in ASEAN countries, among ASEAN population. But let me just, from my own experience and encounter, say something, and we can have further exchange of views, and I can respond to your comments and questions towards later part of this online encounter. For me, I think ASEAN is a very diverse region. All of you know we have 10 different countries. Yeah, and it is not easy to try to form a common position on anything. Yeah, but the important thing is that we all agree there are good reasons for coming together. Yeah, for a small country like Singapore, yeah, we are able to work with big countries like Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, and Singapore used to be part of Malaysia. So the immediate neighbor is Malaysia. Yeah, we can just actually walk across to Malaysia before COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. So how do we try to find a common enough platform, a common enough idea for all of us to continue our activities for the strengthening of ASEAN cohesion, ASEAN unity? To me, I believe it is really how do we work with the young people of ASEAN. Yeah. You know, the other day I was talking to some of my friends, and some of them were planning about how to travel after COVID-19 restrictions are removed. Yeah. But we also got reminded that we are now almost 70 years old. Yeah. And half the Singapore population are people under 35 years old. Yeah. So we have to wonder what do we need to do to connect with the young people of Singapore. As a former Secretary General of ASEAN, I believe that ASEAN has been successful in two things. One is that we manage our diversity. Yeah. We have different social, cultural, history. We have different economic system, we have different political beliefs, so on and so forth. But somehow we managed to come together on certain important issues. We stick together. We may not fully agree with one another, but we agree that we can work together for the sake of having a bigger outcome, better result. Secondly, we somehow got a few formulae, right? Most important for us is to come together as 10 countries, one organization. But if you look at the day-to-day issues, what we do, we deal with trade, we deal with social challenges, we deal with relationship with other big countries outside of ASEAN. So how do we tackle such kind of challenges, the complexities? We work out what we call policy relevant arrangements. Sometimes we reach agreements, sometimes we have no agreements, but we have a framework. Sometimes we got no framework, but we just tell each other, okay lah, we meet and then we talk. If we can agree on certain thing, we do. We call in ASEAN early harvest. Yeah. If you wait until all the paragraphs in an agreement are settled, that means that you maybe become grandfather already. Yeah. So what we do is that we say early harvest program. Whatever we can agree, let's do it. And the more we do some of these things, the more the good results will motivate those people not so agreeable to come on board. Yeah. So in your work, young people of ASEAN, remember, yeah, you don't have to be too demanding and say, I cannot cooperate with you until I have a proper agreement or a agreed framework. No, whatever you can do, just do. Just now the video that you have broadcast before these speeches come on, show that the young people, when they feel that they can do something about cultivating more of the greenery in the mangrove swamp, they went ahead and do it. Yeah. If you think that there is something worth doing, organize yourself, get people to support you, and then show some results. So early harvest is important. The approach allows us to have more and more policy which are relevant. In the beginning, very hard to get everybody to sign on. But as we go along, the results show that the different countries can work together. And that's how we add on and add on. And today, ASEAN is a very significant economic grouping. Yeah, we are open to trade with everybody, really everybody, wherever they come from. You got something to buy and sell with us, we are prepared to do it. And what we do as an individual member state, we open up our system, our economy, our society. Tourism is flourishing. Of course, now COVID-19 make it difficult to travel, but the potential had already been seen before COVID-19 hit us. So let's hope that we continue this good formula that allow us to progress as a group. Apart from managing our diversity and apart from creating policy which will make us relevant to ourselves and to other people around us, I think we are in a very good position now, the young people of ASEAN. There are 2 or 3 important big development, big trends outside of our respective countries, which help us to grow, help us to do more. I talk about pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, but actually what has happened is that as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we become much more digitalized. Yeah, every one of you, if you have a chance to use a mobile phone or you have a chance to use a computer or a laptop or what have you, you use that to reach out. You may be stuck at home, you cannot travel, but here we are talking now. This morning, there are more than 240 of you now listening to me, either by a computer or by a handphone. So digitalization is catching on. It is a very significant trend and development in ASEAN countries. Continue to do this, open our minds to automation, to further digitalization, but don't forget that all these good things must have certain responsibility. So don't anyhow use this kind of gadget to spread misinformation or to tell stories which cannot be confirmed or relied upon by other people. So we are in a digital age. If you look at the statistics, more than 60% of the ASEAN population, ASEAN now has maybe 650 million or 660 million people, more than 60% of us under 35 years old. And all those people under 35 years old, including the fishermen in Cambodia, or the people living in the mountain of Sulawesi, they can reach out to a handphone, mobile phone, or some kind of digital gadget. So we are what the expert call a very IT savvy and digitalized segment of our ASEAN population. And with this kind of characteristic, there are so many areas that we can venture into: business, better social innovation, social enterprises for our community, and more importantly, learning from one another. Yeah. So this is the situation that we should be cognizant of, and hopefully, we can do more to help each other through the digital mechanism and platform. The second very important development and trends across ASEAN is the growth of what I call enterprises. We heard about SMEs, yeah. So they are formal business units, yeah. But for all the young people ASEAN, you have volunteer groups, you have social enterprises, you have little ideas, you go across to different part of ASEAN, and then you come across some ideas which you want to commercialize, but from the earnings and the dividends you got from your enterprise, you put back into society to help the others who are in need of help. So this trend is very significant. We just call this MSME, micro, small and medium enterprises. And if you look around you in any ASEAN city, ASEAN country, you can see the substantial activism. Some good, some not so good, because not every guy who is in business or in entrepreneurial activities may be honest, but the fact is that it is there. And if you use the digital innovation, the digital platform that I mentioned earlier, you can actually do even more for your entrepreneurial endeavors. So now, with this kind of entrepreneurial endeavors, you have a lot more opportunities. Yeah, but I go back to a very fundamental point, which is how do we sustain ourselves? Yeah, the future is in the hands of the young people of ASEAN. Yeah, you need to basically ask, how do you make sure that the environment, the climate that we are living under, and all the other systems that you need for your own family, for your own work, your own play, your own life, can be available and help you 10 years, 20 years down the road. So you need to think about the green economy. What does it mean? You need to think about the blue economy. What does it mean? More than 65% of ASEAN is underwater or surrounded by water, river and sea and whatnot. So blue economy is how do we take sustainability from the rivers, the seas and the ocean around us. Then now we talk about circular economy. Young people like to see how we can recycle things, how to reuse things. Yeah, but if you do not put your mind and address how you can get some profit out of this kind of circular recycling and reusing, then it might not be easy for you to talk about circular economy. So you have to think about at least the profitability, the sustainability of your enterprises. Okay, so now we have this kind of challenges. It's important for us to look at another dimension, which is how can young people bring public sector, that means the civil service agency, the policy bodies, with the business and private sector, with the other socially minded, socially conscious groups, like what you have seen just now about the volunteers. At the end of the day is the partnership. Yeah. ASEAN as an organization, we have organized our ASEAN community based on the 3 pillars of political cooperation, economic integration, and social cultural cooperation. How can we now make sure that we look at all these provisions in the ASEAN community blueprint and strengthen what we wish to have in our own countries, member states of ASEAN, as well as across all the member states, so that our organization is successful and respected. So this requires us to think about the coexistence that we have already witnessed in our society. We have coexisted, even though we are different. Now, how can we go to the next level? Right? And we already have all the plans. So it's just have to get people to implement the plans and do it in a manner which will not cause more harm to your community, to your society, yeah, to your own respective country. Going forward, two things I want to leave with you. Number one, we must continue to have more and more skills. Yeah. Today, how many of you still use a typewriter in writing letters? Yeah. It doesn't mean that these equipment are no longer useful, but bear in mind you can communicate in other ways rather than relying on a typewriter. But those people who are still using typewriter can continue to be relevant. How? You as the young generation go and find way to bring these people into a more profitable and relevant enterprise. Coexist with them. Yeah. The important thing is to have mutual respect. Whether young or old, different religion, different faith, different races, different ethnicity, we coexist in this space called ASEAN, Southeast Asia, under this deep blue sky. So I leave you with this idea that you have to continuously think about educating yourself, adapting yourself. There are many programs that we have under the ASEAN Foundation, under ASEAN Family Network, under our respective country. Every day, you can read about some activities for the young people to participate, to engage, to be trained, to upgrade their skill. So please make use of all this, yeah, and make the best of all this opportunity. The second thing really is that we like to see more political cohesion, yeah, and peace and stability in our region. But let's be honest, even in our own respective family, you can never always agree with your brothers and sisters. Sometimes your parents, they want you to do certain things which you don't agree. But you all live under the same family house, or you all carry the same family name. And at the end of the day, although we disagree, we don't just walk away and don't care about what other thing happened to our other brothers and sisters and parents. So find a way not to be disturbed by all these differences that we are seeing among ourselves. But there is always a way out. Yeah. The important thing is sit down, have dialogue, talk, and make the best of the inherent natural advantage or advantages which Southeast Asia have. In this way, I think, yeah, we can do more. And this is my hope. All of us think about ourselves, do more. Yeah, hang together and grow together. I will stop here and happy to take your questions and comments as we go on with the program this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Ambassador Ong Keng Yong, for your wonderful remarks. Taking from your speech, as young people, there is an urgency for all of us to work on policy-relevant agreement and show the results from our cooperation in order to tackle the issues of our globalizing world. Next up, we are eager to invite Dr. Ahmad Faisal Muhammad Firdaus to the screen, who will deliver his 10 to 15 minutes remarks for all of us.
Thank you, Bagas. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning, everyone. Thank you to ASEAN Foundation and the Maybank Foundation for this great effort in bringing us together in this program. And thank you also to everyone for spending time and giving your attention to this significant program this morning from wherever you are in ASEAN. Thank you also to supporters and sponsors of this program who might not be mentioned thereon. So, without further ado, first of all, thank you, Ambassador Ong, for that great introduction and that those great remarks. And I must also congratulate Ambassador Ong for being both tactful and honest, and also agreeing to the fact that the priority for the future of ASEAN should lie with the youth of this region, and that people like us, you know, who are no longer youth by definition, should actually look for ways for how youth can contribute more, not just in our respective countries, but throughout ASEAN as a whole. So with that, I'd like to get straight to the point that I'd like to discuss. First and foremost, of course, we are talking about youth today, and although we do have a definite definition as per ASEAN and as per this forum at least, which is 35 and below, those who are 35 years old and below. Of course, that definition may vary a bit from country to country and from region to region. Yeah, it might be affected a bit by demographics, by life expectancy, etc., etc. But generally, as a whole, I think we can accept that definition of those below 35. And the key points here, again, just as Ambassador Ong has said, are empowering, exploring roles, sustaining, and something that that we look forward to must be sustainable nowadays. It has to be, given the world that we live in, and harmony. And then, of course, ASEAN. And ASEAN meaning the 10 member states and the region, Southeast Asia. And I'd like to bring our attention a bit to the word harmony here. And as Ambassador Ong has said, and also has been elaborated in the opening by our moderator, harmony throughout the ASEAN region, meaning perhaps peace, as Ambassador Ong said. But to be honest, peace as in no military conflict, yeah, no conflict between nations, has been achieved by and large since the formation of ASEAN in the region, within ASEAN, and between the member states of ASEAN. But I guess we'll have to probably detail that down a bit more and explore what peace really means. Does it only mean that if we don't have military conflict between nations of the ASEAN region that we have peace? But is it perhaps more sustainable and more realistic to talk about peace and harmony as being peace and harmony within people and between peoples in ASEAN? And perhaps it also could mean that there should be less antagonism between the different peoples of ASEAN. And given the fact, of course, that we are generally, although we are living in this region together, 650 million of us, there are differences and there are diversity abound. But how do we achieve that harmony in a more sustainable way? So I guess going forward, I agree with the concept that we have to empower youth in ASEAN in all aspects for us to be able to achieve these sustainable goals, both sustainable development as well as sustainable peace and harmony in the region. And to achieve that, there are perhaps a few striking points, if you like. And first of all, I think there should be, and there has been, but there should be even more interaction. And this interaction can be online, as we do now, can be face-to-face, physical. Of course, physical interaction has been curtailed a bit due to, unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic since last year. But that's not to say that efforts cannot be made towards that end. Yeah, and interaction should also include more interactivity. Sometimes interaction can be stale and can be mundane, but for youth, especially, interaction may not suffice with just verbal interaction. Yeah, it needs some gist and some more spice into it, and so some interactivity in that interaction. And I'm glad to see in the video that's been presented through the work of the ASEAN Foundation and with the support of the Maybank Foundation, that these programs are already in place, but perhaps we need more, and with more diversity in both the aspects of the program as well as those who commit to it and who participate. There needs to be more connectivity. And this is where, I guess, as compared to when ASEAN was founded, yeah, and even 20 years ago, connectivity now is so amazing that it should not be a problem. Yes, it should be a given that that the youth of ASEAN should be able to connect with each other, not just having formal programs to connect with, but also informally, and with the various platforms available, with the internet and with smartphones, and with various connectivity channels open to everyone, not just in ASEAN, of course, but throughout the world, but using the opportunities available, youth in ASEAN especially, and especially of this current generation, who should be and are very IT savvy should be able to connect better. And we should encourage this connectivity. There is also need for more sharing. Now, you might say that it's the same thing, yeah? Interaction, interactivity, connectivity, and sharing. What's the difference? There's a lot of difference. Sharing means you really share, not just through technical means, but sharing from the heart. So what do we share? We share our culture, we share knowledge, we share information, and we share experience. There's an honest transaction that happens between people, yeah, between two people, between 20 people, between 35 people from all 10 countries of ASEAN, yeah. We should encourage more sharing. And I think this has to come, and this can only come after the first connection has been made, and hopefully through programs like the one organized by ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation, that through connectivity and through interaction, there will be real honest sharing. Because from honest sharing, there comes trust, and there comes more sharing, and this will develop relationships, which will then bring through those relationships true sustainable harmony and peace. Now, some have said that volunteering is a way forward. Definitely, but we must remember that when we speak about volunteering and volunteerism, number one, there has to be a willingness on the part of the person or persons who want to volunteer. Otherwise, it's not volunteering. Yes. I guess while some of it can be acquired, a lot of it has to come from inside one's own intention and one's own heart. And thankfully, I think within ASEAN and within the various cultures that are prevalent in ASEAN and in the countries of ASEAN, volunteering and volunteerism is not something which is alien or a concept that is out of the box. It is actually very much within the cultures of many people in ASEAN to volunteer, to give without asking for reciprocal benefit in return. Yes, either in energy, in time, in even material support. Yeah. However, I'd like to bring our attention to that little segment of the video we saw before Ambassador Ong spoke, where the young volunteer spoke about how much she had also gained. And that's actually the beauty of volunteering and volunteerism in whatever field, yeah, in whatever field. And I guess because we are focusing on a few today, so definitely volunteering for the environment, volunteering for arts and culture. And from where I come from, of course, we do a lot of volunteering in humanitarian action, which also includes disaster risk reduction and disaster preparedness. And of course, there is also volunteering for social causes. Yeah, and all of these are good and healthy, and should be encouraged among the youth. And through volunteering, we not only gain by helping others, we also gain more insight about ourselves, and this will then make us better persons. And through being better persons, we then are able to interact better with other people and create better harmony and more sustainable harmony. There is, of course, some other aspects of interaction which I think we should capitalize on, and first and foremost of which is learning. And I think a lot of interaction does occur, but maybe perhaps more improvement can be made in learning together. And learning together here does not only mean learning through formal education classes or sessions, interaction between or exchange programs through universities and colleges, but also learning together informally. So both formal and informal learning, yeah. And I'd like to bring our attention to the fact that some of this is already going on, I'm sure, especially through universities in ASEAN. I know there is an ASEAN Universities Youth Volunteer Program as well. But I think what will work better is that if it's not restricted to just tertiary centers, we need to find a way that youth who don't manage to get themselves into universities and institutions of higher learning can also get the opportunity to interact and to learn together with other youth in ASEAN. So people at vocational institutions, people who don't make it to universities, but but are training as tradespeople, as technicians, as people with technical skills. Yeah, they also get the chance to learn together and interact and exchange. And of course, then people who don't get to go through any formal training, people who are living in the rural areas, how do we get them to interact? Yes, so these are very important aspects, because sometimes we forget, and we sometimes get into the danger of doing good things but in a bubble. We must make sure that the bubble is not very too restrictive and too elitist sometimes. Yeah, we must make sure that if it is, we find ways to either widen or make the bubble bigger, or create other bubbles. And because otherwise we'll have doctors talking to doctors, yeah, PhD students talking to PhD students. But what about the young kid in the village in Cambodia, and the young girl in a village deep in the jungles of Pahang in Malaysia? Yeah, and someone on one of the islands off the main island of Mindanao in the Philippines, yeah, in a rural area. These are probably just as important, if not more important, for them to have the chance to interact than just those of us who are lucky enough and God-given talent enough to get the opportunity to go into tertiary learning centers. So that's a point I'd like to make, actually. And of course, all this can be facilitated, and I'm again very happy and congratulate both ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation, Sharil and Dr. Yang for conducting this program, among others. Yeah, some, as I said, among the ASEAN universities also have, through the ASEAN Youth Volunteer Program, involve, like I said, their students, yeah, in exchange programs. I guess there should be more inter-ASEAN programs, and these can be formal ones. Yeah, they can also be informal ones, and they can be in social areas of interaction. They can be in sports. Now, when I say sports, there are of course two levels. Yeah, one is elite sports, where high-level competition, etc., is required, but also community level sports. Yeah. So while you can have, so we need to have more programs where perhaps it's not just about elite sports. Elite sports are fine. Elite sports also bring about very good vibes, although sometimes they can bring about negative ones as well. Yeah, sometimes when the competition is too heated, yeah, you can get not positive but negative vibes, but between countries. But I guess both are necessary for slightly different reasons. But perhaps the best kind of program is if you can have an elite sports program running in concurrent or concurrently with a community sports program. Yeah, for example, a marathon run when COVID-19 is gone, of course. Yeah, where you could have elite runners running for high-level competition, but you could have an open marathon for and shorter distances for the community. Yeah? And this is where youth can participate, etc. And of course, cultural programs, etc. Yeah. Ambassador Ong talked about tourism and how important it is for the ASEAN region. And of course, we are being hit badly now by COVID-19 and the pandemic. It's hit, I think, most, if not all, countries in ASEAN where the tourism industry is concerned. Some worse than others, yeah, and some localities even worse, yeah, like Bali, Indonesia, for example, Phuket in Thailand, yeah, the diving islands in Malaysia. These places have been hit very, very badly. However, perhaps one way to rejuvenate the tourism industry post-COVID is perhaps to encourage intra-ASEAN youth tourism. And if somehow this can be done at cost, yeah, or at a lower cost, and if we can involve the airline industry, the tourism industry, etc., this could actually be a way to rejuvenate and become a catalyst to reinvigorate the badly hit tourism industry in the region. And I think there are two other aspects, which I like to touch on, which are number one, are joint cultural programs, and this can be formal culture again, traditional as well as modern art and culture. but also informal cultural programs, exchange of people going to each other's villages, etc., in different countries, just to learn about how people live, and how people carry on with their lives. That's also a cultural program. And one thing perhaps that we've not done enough is a focus on joint literary programs. I think one of the areas where all countries in ASEAN can do with a lot of improvement in is actually improve the reading time of our people, which I think at present is relatively still very low, and we could do a lot more if the youth of this country can be encouraged, of this region, can be encouraged to lead the way where reading is concerned. This is going to be a challenge because one of the problems with the information technology revolution is that people are now more used to short messaging, on WhatsApp and on other forms of interaction, that some people don't take too much to reading anymore, especially reading books. But I guess we'll have to be innovative in how we do that. And last but not least, I'm not going to spend time here because Ambassador Ong has spoken about it, to also encourage youth to participate more in new ways of working, new ways of making a living, new ways of taking advantage of the current technologies, and also the new way of working as a result of the pandemic. And youth are probably much more better equipped than those of us who are older to adjust to the new realities and the new norms. Now, there are just a couple of things I'd like to say before I wrap up. Is about the challenges, and because it's nice to talk about all these things and also the things that Ambassador Ong has spoken about. But I guess, what do we need for all these things to happen? First and foremost, again, this is why I'd like to congratulate Ambassador Ong for his very honest realization that the future belongs with youth, and that we who are no longer youth should give them the priority, and we should learn how to accommodate them rather than the other way around. Is because there has to be a conducive environment to allow youth to grow and explore these roles. Because it's nice talking about them, but if countries in ASEAN, either government or the private sector, the corporate sector, or society, the hierarchical society that is present sometimes as a whole, refuses to allow youth to be empowered and to have a conducive environment for them to fulfill these roles, then it's not going to happen. But I think I like what Ambassador Ong said. Sometimes you just got to do it. Just like Nike said, just do it. Because sometimes it takes the youth to start something first before us older ones realize that you're actually on the right track. And there has to be some cultural shift. While a lot of the Asian as well as the culture that we practice in the ASEAN region is very good. And respect to elders is actually one of the key cornerstones of that culture that we all share. But perhaps the elders also need to have a slight shift and to allow more space for youth to speak out, and to take their place. And the good thing is, of course, the information and communication technology again will allow this to happen anyway. It's just that it's much better if it's done without so much tension. And I think the third and last point is accepting and managing diversity. Again, I'm not going to go into it in detail. Ambassador Ong has spoken about it. But even within our countries, we have diversity. Malaysia, Singapore, especially, have various major ethnic groups. Living side by side with each other. Even within our countries, we need to accept that there is diversity. There are differences between us. And of course, within ASEAN, the fact that we are not actually entirely homogeneous as well, like the European Union, which is a bit more homogeneous than ASEAN, means that there has to be more acceptance and more management of diversity. But I think if we leave it to the youth to do it well, and without any other influences, I think we can trust that the youth of ASEAN will be able to manage and accept diversity even better than us of the older generation. So with that, I think my time is up. There's a lot more that I can say, but that's enough for now, and I'll be happy also to interact in the Q&A. So thank you very much again to the organizers, and thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmad Faisal Muhammad Firdaus, for your inspiring messages. Learning from your speech, we have the need to explore the peace beyond the absence of military conflicts. Rather, as the youths of ASEAN, we ought to endeavor to expand the definition of the harmony and peace that includes more sustainable and sincere interactions across the region of ASEAN, as well as all over the earth. Without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, our special panelists will deliver their speeches. We have three modern living symbolism of Wonder Women as our panelists today. This session will be moderated by my lovely colleague, Clara. So Clara, I would like to invite you to the screen.
Thank you very much, Bagas, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope you are having an amazing day and welcome to our webinar. So my name is Clara. I'm a program intern at the ASEAN Foundation, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. So I'm sure we feel inspired and excited after already hearing amazing keynote speeches. Thank you very much. But now let's refresh our mind, and I'd like to invite everyone to join an ice-breaking game. So on your mobile devices or web browser, can you please visit menti.com? It's on the screen now, MENTI.com. And once you're there, please put in your name and insert this code number. This will let you join our game. So I'm going to give everyone a little bit of time to do this. We know that it's a little bit hard, but this game will give us some hints on today's discussion topics and introduce us a bit more to what ASEAN does. Perfect. So once you get to menti.com, put in your name and insert the code number. So the code number is 13967908. Perfect, here we go. So once you put in your name, I'll be able to see you down here with your heart number. If you need any help accessing menti.com, the link is also in the chat in Zoom. We already have one person in. We have about 300 people in our Zoom call today, so I'll let us get a little bit more time. If you're having trouble with that code, try the most recent one up the top here then. 37295940. If you're having trouble with that old code, try using this new one. This new code is 37295940. Thanks, everyone. All right, we have 30 people in this code so far. I'll leave it up for one more minute. Sorry, we do have a new code. If you need that new code, it's up the top here. You can see 37295940. If you need help, that new code is also in chat. Perfect. So this quiz is going to be on empowering youth across ASEAN. It's going to be a little bit of theme throughout today's discussion. It's also going to be about what ASEAN does as a whole. So once you've logged in, you can write your name, enter the code, and do remember that the faster you answer, the higher points you'll get. At the end of the quiz, we'll have a fun discussion about the leaderboard and who got the most points. Perfect. Yep, if everyone could just join if you can. If you can't, that's okay. But if you have a mobile device or web browser handy, it is a lot of fun. So please join menti.com. Perfect, we have the new code in chat as well. We have over 100 people in the Menti quiz now. Fantastic. All right, we're still getting numbers up, so I'll wait for just a few more minutes. We'll just get started now. All right, so starting with our Menti quiz. What is the biggest problem facing the youth in Southeast Asia today? This is not a correct answer. This is whatever you think is the biggest problem. You can select education inequality, youth unemployment, unhealthy environment and pollution, or gadget addiction? There is no right answer. We just want to see what you think is the biggest problem facing youth in Southeast Asia region today. You can see on screen we have a majority of you thinking education inequality with 33%, but it's not that far off. We have 134 participants. Fantastic. So you all think that education inequality, youth unemployment are the two biggest issues, with second being unhealthy environment and pollution and gadget addiction. This is fantastic. This gives us a real big insight about what you want to hear from next from the ASEAN Foundation and what you're interested in. Perfect. All right, so we'll go on to our next one. I think we got all of our answers in. Fantastic. So this one is an answer as fast as you can. We have fantastic avatars here. Hopefully you can see yours there, but we do have a lot of people in the quiz today. So which of the following is not part of the SDGs 2030 Agenda's 5 pillars? So if you are aware, the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals 2030 Agenda, has 5 pillars. Do you remember which 2 of these are not part of it? You can select multiple answers, and there are correct answers. So you have 10 seconds left to answer, so be quick. So which of these are not part of the SDGs 2030 Agenda? Got to be fast. Correct. So many people got that right. Pleasure is not part of our SDGs 2030 Agenda. Neither is power. So we have peace, people, and planet as 3 of our 5 pillars. And does anyone know what the other 2 are? So it's not pleasure and it's not power, but it's partnerships and peace. It's our 5 SDGs 2030 Agenda pillars. Fantastic. So most of you got that right. Pleasure is definitely not one of them. Neither is power. So on to our next one. So remember, you have to answer fast. So do you know which of the following is not part of our Empowering Youth Program thematic areas? This is a little bit trickier. So which of the following is not part of our Empowering Youth Program's thematic areas? Environment, education, digital technology, arts and culture, or community empowerment? So you have only 5 seconds left. Which of these are not part of our Empowering Youth Program's thematic areas? Correct. Most of you got that right again. Digital technology is not part of our thematic areas. Environment, education, arts and culture, and community engagement all are. Really good job. I'm super impressed most of you got that right. All right, so that's the end of our little Menti quiz. Hopefully you're all warmed up, and this is our leaderboard. Fantastic. I'm so impressed. We've got so many people, 150 people, and our winner is Fitri with 1,934 points. Congratulations. With Dran and Don Sasu as second and third. So hopefully that was a bit of fun about our Menti quiz and getting you warmed up about today's discussion. All right. Perfect. So that is the end of our Menti quiz. I'd like to invite everyone back onto Zoom. So we won't be doing any more Menti quiz. You can shut that. Thank you so much for participating. Hopefully it was a lot of fun. So I hope everyone is now ready for our discussion. I'll give you maybe a few more seconds to hop back on Zoom. We're not going to be using Menti anymore. Thank you very much for participating. Perfect. So I hope everyone is ready. But before we jump into our discussions, I'd like to remind first our speakers to please keep your microphones on mute while other speakers are presenting. And for everyone in the audience, if you have any questions during this webinar that you'd like to ask our panelists or our keynote speakers, please type it in the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel below. So on there, you can also vote on questions that you think are most interesting or relevant to our topic today. We've already had some really good questions being submitted. So now I'd like to introduce the bright minds that will be our speakers today. So first we have Clarissa Tanura Hadija. Arissa is a project assistant of the Asia Pacific Youth and Sports Task Force with UNESCO. Second, we have Ms. Dian Nurasiwi, the Executive Director of Great Indonesia. And finally, we have Ms. Amira Badawi, the founder of Move for Hope. So as you can see, we have amazing speakers today, and I'm really excited to share with you. So first up, we have Arissa. So she is the UNESCO Asia Pacific Youth and Sport Task Force. So she's led and managed 6 youth projects in collaboration with youth and sport NGOs in the Philippines, Timor-Leste, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And I know a few of you are from those places too. And she featured in the Southeast Asian Women's Initiative to represent Indonesia in the human rights category. So today, we're really lucky to hear from Arissa talking about the sports for development and peace, building bridges in conflict through sport. So Arissa, please take it away.
Hi, thank you, Clara, for the introduction, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here. So let me just share my screen to you all. Can you see the presentation?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you for having me today, ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation team. I'm excited to be here with other panelists today. So I'm Risa, I'm Program Assistant from Social and Human Sciences Unit in UNESCO Jakarta office. And for the next 15 minutes, we will learn together about UNESCO Youth and Sport Task Force, and also how can you to foster sense of peace in your community. So I love this preamble from the UNESCO that it stated that peace must begin in our minds and starting from ourselves, and also how we will learn how to relate sport to be the tool to foster peace and prevent violent extremism in our society. So I love this quote from one of the members of UNESCO Youth and Sport Task Force. His name is Rico. And I believe that the power of sport is still very relevant today, especially where we face global challenges such as discrimination, insecurity, and violence. And actually, the universal values of sports, such as fair play, solidarity, and equality, have been proven repeatedly to be effective vehicle to promote solidarity and also tolerance in our society, which is the heart of SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. So here, I want to introduce you that in UNESCO, we believe that sport is actually a human right and also enabler of sustainable development goals. And as you can see on the slides, sport actually is enabler on the specific 9 SDGs that highlighted here. And today we will focus on SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institution, SDG 5, gender equality, and also SDG 10, reduce in inequalities. So I want to introduce to you all the UNESCO Youth and Sport Task Force. So who are they? So they are 70 creative, passionate, and innovative young leaders from 28 countries in the Asia Pacific who use sports to create social change in their communities. And these young leaders and activists are using sport to make a difference, such as to empower women and girls. They also promote values that relevant, like in sport, like empathy, fairness, kindness, and they also promote tolerance, and their activities also reducing violent extremism, and also they educate issue about the environment. And we believe that youth like you are our partners and also leaders in your own communities. And we help this member of UNESCO Youth and Sport Task Force by connecting with each other to promote and enhance their work. And also we provide them with regional and global opportunities for capacity building and growth. And usually we have a UNESCO Sport and SDGs Fun Shop where we combine the fun spirit of sport with the intensive learning of the workshop. This is like the picture that was taken in 2019. Usually we held it annually, but unfortunately due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to postpone that. And in the fun shop, the youth like you can become facilitators. And also you will learn how to connect your programs to achieve specific sustainable development goals. And so the question here is that we want to ask, how can we drive peace? And one of our members, Warit, he's from Thailand. So he actually created a cycling club and he lives in Hat Yai. So Hat Yai is the border between Thailand and Malaysia. And before there were many conflicts there. So he used his cycling club to gather youth from different ethnic groups and also to bond it with them. And Warit demonstrates how his projects actually help the youth that live in the conflict zones in certain border provinces of Thailand to actually they develop intercultural understanding through collaborative teamwork. And he also, his projects also contributed to the national reconciliation in Hat Yai. And Warit also make that these youths that in his cycling club realize, oh, actually, even though we came from different backgrounds, we have many commonalities. And it helps them to reduce stereotypes between each other. And his project actually contributed to SDG 16. And I also want to share with you later on, UNESCO also collaborated with other members of Youth and Sport Task Force to develop projects that foster social inclusion, to promote gender equality and reducing inequality in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So last year, UNESCO Jakarta collaborated with one of our members of UNESCO Youth and Sport Task Force, their organization called Spike and Surf Philippines. And we implemented a project called Yakap sa Comunidad, or in English, we call it Hub for the Community, for 3 months. So in this project, we implemented volleyball training and also self-improve training for the youth. And we do this project via Zoom and Facebook in 2 rural areas in Philippines, specifically in Kiangan and Odongan. And so one of the most feedbacks that we got from the participants that they really love the interactive learning drills where they learn about volleyball drills, huddle time, but also there's component of whole life coaching. And the training also focused to improve their intellects, values, formation, and skills. And there were a total about 56 playing coaches who average age between 20 to 21 years old, and most of them are in college level. So why this kind of project is important? Because sport like volleyball and leadership training helps youth, especially girls, to become more empowered. And it develops leadership skills such as how to speak up for yourself, and you also learn how to develop teamwork, how to communicate within your team. And these kind of skills are very valuable for in your careers and also in everyday life. So next, here is also our collaboration with another of our members called Child Pose Yoga Project Philippines. So we organized a project called Restorative Yoga in the time of pandemic. And we did it for 3 months last year. So in this project, we combine yoga and meditation practices where we also cover concepts such as trauma, social justice, and also how to connect to our passion and purpose. So we help and we support around 200 women and girls in the Philippines, specifically in Muntinlupa City. And most of the participants are victims of domestic violence and also criminally liable youth and children. And these kind of yoga and meditation practices helps and to support the victims of domestic violence to develop resilience and also to develop self-love for themselves. While for criminally liable youth and children, they learn through meditation and yoga practices to promote positive values and also how to express and channel your emotions in positive ways. And also, if you also learn or practice meditation in your home, you also realize how meditation helps to develop critical thinking skills that help you to make a better decision in your future. So let's think about what can you do to foster a sense of peace in your community. So first, you can widen your friendship and also open your minds to make friends who have different backgrounds than you. Or also you can make friends with people who have different ages than you. So research shown from the United Nations that this kind of attitude advanced tolerance and prevent violent extremism. And second, you can join great program like this, Empowering Youth Across ASEAN, where you can develop and use your talents, types, and skills to create social change in your community and in ASEAN. And third, you can also embrace diversity and you can ask more questions to understand people who come from different backgrounds than you. And I know it's not easy and it might be harder for some people, but actually I believe that peace actually starts when we learn to listen to each other, and peace starts by respecting people who came from different backgrounds than us. And lastly, you can also start to read more about peace and violent extremism issue, or you can also start to raise awareness about this in your inner circle and also show support for your friends who face discrimination. So lastly, I believe that together we can all be agents of change to create positive progress, to create a more peaceful and inclusive ASEAN community. And if you want to know more about UNESCO Youth and Sport Task Force, please go to UNESCO Jakarta website. Thank you so much for listening and for your time. So I'll give the floor back to Clara. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Clarissa, for your insightful presentation. I think we can all learn that it's not only healthy to be involved in sports and teamwork, but it's also beneficial to your community and learning experience. So before we continue to our next speaker, I'd like to remind our audience that please do not hesitate to write your questions in the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel while the speakers are presenting. So we have speakers going in there and answering. We also have the Q&A session at the end. So our next speaker is Ms. Dian, the Executive Director of Great Indonesia. So this is a non-government organization which organizes international voluntary service in Indonesia, which gives the opportunity for all youth without exceptions and discrimination to access global education and experience a long life learning of volunteerism. She is an ASEAN Youth Changemaker with us here at the ASEAN Foundation, and she's also an alumni of the Empowering Youth Program Cohort 1 in Cambodia. So Dian is joining us today with limited access to internet, so she will be presenting through a pre-recorded video. So a massive thank you for her time and for joining us in the webinar Q&A later. So Dian will talk about promoting diversity through the Social Forestry Program. So without further ado, let's hear from Dian.
Thank you, Clara, for the introduction. Thank you to ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation. Before I start my presentation, I will share my screen first. So I hope you see my screen now. I'm Dian Nursiwi, the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN Cohort alumni, also the Executive Director of Great Indonesia, an NGO in Indonesia. Here, I would like to share about promoting diversity through social forestry program that I ever joined with Empowering Youth Across ASEAN program, also with Great Indonesia. But before I start my presentation, allow me to share a bit story about me. Why now I interested in harmony in diversity, also forestry program. As I was born and grown up in a small village in the mountain areas in a homogeneous society, I have no experience directly on diversity, so I don't know what this diversity means to me. How will I react to this difference when I meet it someday? And what can I do to build harmony? As I also grown up in a close to the nature and I interested in the forestry program, I also questioning how can forestry program create harmony in diversity? And the biggest important question is what is my role as a youth to promote harmony in diversity? Speaking about harmony in diversity, especially in these ASEAN regions, I'm really lucky to be selected as one of the youth from Indonesia to join Empowering Youth Across ASEAN or EA program because this program gathered 100 youth from 10 ASEAN countries. And here we had 1 week regional workshop in Bangkok in Chulalongkorn University to equip the youth with many knowledge and skills to create impactful social projects in 3 countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Cambodia. We had also our 2 weeks infield project in each deployment country, and to make sure the sustainability and the impact is sustainable, we have a 1-year sustainability project period. So by empowering youth across ASEAN program, it's become a good platform because it can connect the people to people across ASEAN, especially the youth. By this connection, we can have mutual understanding among ASEAN youth so that we can create harmony in diversity and unity in diversity. Because the best way to understand harmony in diversity is to experience it in person. So that also empowering youth across ASEAN program, advancing SDGs and sustaining harmony of the ASEAN society. ASEAN community. On my personal, empowering youth across ASEAN bring a big impact on my self-development in many aspects. So I really encourage you to join the next Empowering Youth Across ASEAN program. Before we speak further about the how forestry program can sustaining and promote the harmony in diversity in ASEAN, we have to look about the environmental situation in ASEAN and what is challenge. And what ASEAN youths can do. As you can see here from the data that I get, ASEAN region is endowed with rich natural resources that extend essential life support system both for the region and the world. Also, we have covered with a dense jungle peppered with gorgeous beaches and is full of incredible wildlife. ASEAN has a total forest cover of more than 200 million hectares in 2012 and a total protected area of more than 400 million hectares, which account for 14% of total land area in 2014. ASEAN region is home to around 60% of the world tropical peatlands and 42% of the world mangrove forest. This situation also come up with environmental challenge that I believe is also happening in our country, like endangered species concentration, air pollution, destruction of coral reef, deforestation, water security, and also the biggest that we now face, climate change. And now what ASEAN youths can do? I believe even though in this pandemic situation, we still can do some ways like support organizations working on carbon offset campaigns in your own country, buying recycled wood, planting more trees. You can work to conserve energy in your home, reduce carbon offset with driving less, walking or baking more, reducing energy consumption. We can use water wisely, and the most important is we can participate in volunteerism projects and focus on creating solutions for those challenges. Speaking about volunteering in ASEAN, also about the forestry program, how it can promote harmony in diversity. Me and my teams, eco-nurture teams, we had a great opportunity to do this project in Trapeang Sangkai, Kampot, Cambodia. As we know that Trapeang Sangkai community is a community based on ecotourism. So before we start our project there, we did some assessment with the community to make sure that our activities will meet their needs. So we here create some activities like beautifying activities that you can see in the pictures. The aims of the activities are to make sure that this ecotourism site can attract more tourism, especially local tourism to come. So it can increase the income of this community. And also we had a lot of workshops and cultural exchange. For the workshop, we targeted young people from the students, local youth, also the elderly peoples, and we involve also the local authorities. Why? Because we would like to make sure that this project will sustainable by involving all elements of the society. And for sure, cultural exchange is really important point, so we can know other cultures and we can create harmony in diversity. About the natural preservation, we have some activities like planting the mangrove. We also had a workshop about recycling and upcycling because we saw that in these places there are a lot of waste, especially the plastic and the bottles. And these activities also great because it supports the SDGs, especially SDGs number 30 about climate action and SDGs number 15 life on land. So from these activities, we are have a lot of impacts toward the youth, the community, also the environment. From this, from the youth side, we can create mutual understanding by we live together with a different youth from 7 countries in ASEAN, also with the local peoples. It create tolerance in us, and it's really good to create harmony and unity in diversity. It creates a good bonding like a family among us that is really important to make sure that these projects can run in a good way. It is also a good for our self-development because we learn a lot about leadership, problem-solving skills, and project management. From this community, we can get to know each other cultures. It's also good that we have a good bonding with ASEAN youth, and we can create more, we can raise more awareness on nature, especially mangrove. They start to recycle and upcycle the plastic bottle. They can raise their income through cooking class. We have also worked about this cooking class. Increase the nurture of local and foreign tourism to PFC. And for the environment, it's really a big impact we can create. Like we planted 1,000 mangrove in this area. And as we know that one mangrove can absorb 1 kilogram of carbon dioxide, so it's really good impact toward the environment. And at least 200 kilograms of waste, such as plastic box, bottles, and straw were upcycled into material for beautification. We adopt a mangrove for, we have also idea to adopt a mangrove for $1 so that the tourists come, they can adopt a mangrove for $1. They can plant it by their own, or let the community do this. And the money that raised from this idea will go to the donation to be used for the management of this ecotourism. And waste were identified the biodegradables, non-biodegradables, and recyclable. Many trash been installed in some places that the tourists mostly comes in this Papiang Sangkai, and also many colorful signboard with messages related to environment protection installed. In the same value and spirit on the volunteering, especially for the environmental protection and the harmony in diversity, Great Indonesia also do some activities like you can see here in the pictures. We had our STP or short-term volunteering project and long middle-term volunteering or LMTP projects. Related to environment, we have some projects like Mountains of Climate Change in Gender Perspective by Lunaria and Good Indonesia, our partner in Italy, in 2015. Also, we have STV with Cambodia Youth Action in West Java in 2018. We have some activities in LMTV or STV and Batu Loceng in West Java. It is about nature protection because in this area in West Java, there is Cikapundung River, which is really polluted with the waste from the cow. So we and the local partner and the local people there, we have created these activities. We processes the cow dung so to be the compost, so we can reduce the cow dung that goes to the river directly. We did it since 2016 until now, and also in Citarum River, still in West Java, as we know that Citarum River is one of the most polluted river in the world. So we did also some activities, and we are so proud that what we did also, what our local partner from Yayasan Bening Saguling do in Citarum, and with the local people also, they get the Calcutta Award in 2020 for what they have do to the Citarum. And also there are word exchange about the nature preservation. The interesting story about word exchange here was that one of the participants from Cambodia, he was our local youth who joined our activities in Prapiang Sangkai. He was motivated by what ASEAN youth do in Prapiang Sangkai, and he saw the impact toward TFC and the community, and he decided to join work exchange in Indonesia, so he can experience about diversity, about forestry program on his own. And the last also we had Mangrove for Java to stop climate change in Pekalongan, as we know that Pekalongan is endangered by the rising of the sea level, so it's start to sinking. So yeah, from this volunteering is really have bring a lot of impact to the volunteering, because like this great, like this beautiful quotes from the anonym say that Polynesia, that moment when you forget you volunteering to have changed life because it changes yours. So thank you. And I give the floor back to Farah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Miss Diane, for the knowledge and insights you've shared with us. You are on call with us today, so if you do have any questions, you can put them in the question box below. So next, I'd like to invite Miss Amira to the screen, the founder of Move for Hope. So Amira is a student at NYU Tisch studying musical theatre with a minor in psychology. And she started working as a dance teacher at Resonant Dance Company before becoming the founder of Move for Hope. She's incredibly passionate about the performing arts, and throughout her journey, she's aimed to be an inspiration to young artists as well as positively impact the Malaysian society. So Amira is joined by Juan Joseph. We'll talk about the importance of media to sustaining harmony. So take it away, Amira.
Hi everyone, we're just going to quickly share our screen so y'all can see that.
Everything good?
Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to start. So hi everyone, my name is Amira. I'm the founder of Move for Hope.
Hi, I'm John. I'm the head of marketing and social media management for Move for Hope.
Before we begin, I'd just like to say thank you to ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation for giving us the opportunity to talk today. We are super grateful to you guys to be able to speak on such a big platform. Also, thank you to our previous speakers. It's incredibly inspirational to just listen to all of you because we're still quite young. I myself am 20 and John is 22. And so we're learning a lot of different things at the moment. So it's really inspiring just listening to all of you. So thank you. Before we get into harmony in ASEAN, I'd like to just talk about Move for Hope for a second. So Move for Hope started off as a fundraising initiative aimed to provide refugees in KL with better access to online education. This campaign is in aid of Hope Learning Center, a refugee school in KL accommodating students aged between 3 to 16 years old. The students have no proper internet routers installed within their homes and have to resort to attending online classes through their phones using unreliable free data plans. Our mission was to raise 100K in the hopes of providing a year's worth of internet for 48 refugee families of students enrolled at Hope Learning Center. In order to raise this amount, MFH hosted a myriad of different by donation fitness classes, from HIIT to spin, salsa to jazz, with nearly 60 instructors and over 100 classes. People would donate a minimum of 30 ringgit to join, where all proceeds will go to the cause. I'm grateful to say that in the first 3 weeks of our fundraiser, we were able to reach our goal and surpass it. The fundraiser is live until 31st of March. Today we are at 135K, and we would like to share with you some things we learned on our journey. So let's begin by talking about our roles. So number one is to create opportunities, right? We want to be able to create opportunities for the kids at Hope Learning Center, whether that be creative opportunities by exposing them to the performing arts or a creative medium, but also giving them new learning opportunities. Two is to create opportunities for my team. We're still quite young and we want to be able to learn and grow and learn as much as we possibly can and see what we can do for the future. Three is partnerships with local businesses as well as bigger companies. And four, for people who want to get involved and make a difference, whether that be volunteering for our initiative and volunteering at Move for Hope, or even volunteering at all of these different refugee schools.
The other thing that was really important to us was to be innovative and creative. We knew that to succeed, we needed to provide an innovative and creative idea from a youthful perspective. Our donation scheme revolved around providing a service and getting a large, pre-existing, and frankly, quite popular community involved. In this case, we chose the fitness and arts community. Not only were we the first people to do something like this, but we were also giving something back to our donors, allowing them to actively include themselves and reap the benefits of fitness and improved mental health. We were pretty creative in our branding, if I do say so myself, making it youthful, friendly, but still with a message of seriousness, constantly striving to maintain our exposure and engagement. We also reached out to young local companies to create giveaways for certain products, which kept our people engaged and looking forward to getting something out of the process as well. The other thing that we really wanted to make sure we did was mobilize the community. We wanted to mobilize our own community as well as those that we reached out to help improve the education to the community of refugees whose lives we wanted to help improve. Raising awareness was one of our tenets to ensure that people felt the need to make a difference. We're also going to continue to be reaching out to this community now that we've built it to help us in the distribution of resources to these children down the line.
So number 4 is promoting diversity. One, our team is incredibly diverse through age, gender, and race. There are 14 of us based around the world, in the UK, in the US, and over here. We each have different backgrounds and upbringings, but we can all agree on one thing. We will continue to work hard to give these kids the right to an education. 2, we also promote diversity through partnerships with local businesses. During our fundraiser, we were working with 3 local brands, such as Drop, Lululemon Malaysia, and Coco Dry. These 3 businesses sell very different products and therefore would appeal to 3 different types of consumers by working with all 3. By working with all 3, we not only promote diversity, but open our network to different kinds of people. And finally, of course, our fitness instructors. All of our fitness instructors not only came from different local studios, but we also had a dozen international instructors, my goodness, from the UK and US. Having a diverse group of instructors opened the floor to different types of classes, ranging from your regular hip hop classes to sensual chair dance and qigong. We had a class for everyone. So what is harmony? When given the prompt for this webinar, our first thought was, how does MFH define harmony? Harmony to us is bringing people together who wouldn't normally work together. Before we begin discussing how we intend to bring harmony throughout ASEAN, we would like to share with you how MFH brought harmony through this initiative. After all, you have to start somewhere. There are 4 communities that we unified in order to promote harmony, starting with our personal network. As mentioned in the previous slide, our team is incredibly diverse. Therefore, this diversity is also present in our individual networks. Starting the initiative by reaching out to friends, family, and colleagues, we were able to unify our different networks. Each team member has a reason for volunteering or being part of this initiative, therefore reaching to their personal networks by creating our story videos where we share our personal reasons for joining the cause. We noticed after posting these videos, our engagement following skyrocketed. Another way we brought harmony was through our instructors. Most of our instructors are affiliated with a fitness studio. Most of the studios offer a similar line of classes, and they are also located in the same areas, making them competitors. In order to reach our goal, we knew we needed as many instructors to get involved, and this meant partnering up with most of the top fitness studios in KL, irrespective of their competitive nature. In order to get them on board, I made sure the instructors understood our mission, and by focusing their attention on the overall purpose of this initiative, we were able to bring unity between them. Another community MFH set out to unify was schools. As most of my team are quite young, we decided to utilize our alumni relationship to our alma maters. We reached out to GIS, ISKL, and Cempaka to not only help with raising awareness, but also get the students involved. Some students have created a school fundraiser where all proceeds will go straight to the cause. Other students have chosen to help with future donation drives. Getting these younger kids involved not only gives them the experience to create their own organizations in the future, but inspires them to find out which causes they want to fight for. There's always going to be a community that needs help, and therefore, as people of ASEAN, we must spread our kindness to help different causes. By bringing these schools together, we are able to bring harmony. As similar to the instructors, these schools are competitors. Therefore, putting them under the same cause helps bring that sense of unity. Finally, there are our local businesses. As mentioned before, Drop, Coco Dry, and Lululemon Malaysia sell very different products. Therefore, in any other circumstance, they may not have had the opportunity to work under the same umbrella. However, with the fundraiser, they now have a connection and have the chance to work together in the future. So let's identify the gaps. There are 2 present gaps that hinder us from reaching harmony. First, the generation gap. There is a huge difference in opinion about a myriad of social issues between the older and the younger generation. Due to social media, the younger generation have started forming their own opinions on political and social issues and showcase them all over their platforms. We have identified many differences now, having worked with those a lot older than us, i.e. Yayasan Budi Penyayang, who we have a partnership with, as well as younger than us, the Cempakan students who wanted to do a fundraiser for us. Our organization sits in the middle, which enables us to communicate and understand both parties. Our goal is to continue to work with these distinct groups as a means of bridging this gap, ultimately working towards bettering our future. There's also the community gap. As mentioned before, our goal is to bring together communities who otherwise wouldn't normally work together. This applies to examples I gave before with the fitness studios, schools, and local businesses.
I'm going to be talking a little bit more about bridging the gaps in a socioeconomic sense. One of the things that gave us inspiration in this particular field was the Sustainable Development Goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities. With rapid urbanization, there are more slums and poor infrastructure, as well as it's constantly furthering the socioeconomic gap. The communities in these areas are often left impoverished, with the rest of the city left in the dark about their plights. In my own experience, I live, frankly, up the road from schools and PPR flats that are left completely in the dark and in a completely different world than what we live in. We believe that striving to achieve the goal of this particular goal will help promote safety and inclusivity for the refugee communities in ASEAN. The bedrock of a sustainable community is the chance at equal opportunity. And to us, that begins with education. We see education as a form of empowerment for those in those communities, allowing them to speak out about the injustices or problems they face, as well as being able to find a way to help their own communities with fresh knowledge. In the case of Move for Hope's mission, we wanted to improve not just the school's educations, but bridge the gaps that they experience with the arts and movement through forms like dance and fitness, so that they have an opportunity to explore multiple avenues and involve themselves with our community, making us all that much more diverse and inclusive. But education doesn't stop there. As I said earlier, there are a whole slew of people who don't know what may be happening just down the road. People will not understand how to be inclusive without the knowledge of the stories of the refugees in our own hometowns. We believe that teaching everyone is necessary in ensuring awareness and promoting inclusivity and harmony. We use social media to achieve this in the form of well-researched infographics, honest stories straight from the heart, and a whole lot of love from our part too. I have to go back one. I believe that our role as part of ASEAN is bringing to light the plights and current crises that fellow members of the ASEAN community face, not just to Malaysians, but to other ASEAN countries as a world. We can spread a message of unity and camaraderie. The ASEAN countries make up just under 10% of the world's population. That is a massive number. As a community, we are strong, but we absolutely could be stronger and work together to improve that. Often, refugees of all creeds are being deprived of basic human rights, and we still have strict laws restricting refugees to live in poverty when they come to other ASEAN countries. To all of us at the team at Move for Hope, who have met the families whose lives have been affected due to discrimination and strife, we know that there is more that all of us can do as part of ASEAN countries to improve their situations. I'm going to be talking about media as a tool. Our biggest tool of success was the use of social and digital media to promote our messages. We knew that we needed to bring all these people together, old and young, competitors in the same marketplace, and we knew we needed a unifying message to do so. Instagram was where we started, and to this day is still our prime tool in achieving those goals. We set a series of key performance indicators that we wanted to achieve, where we knew we wanted to reach, So we aimed for milestones. Follower count was huge in gaining traction, but we also wanted to make sure that our other goals were well documented and communicated to our followers. We really wanted every single person following us to feel involved in what we were doing. We also wanted to use social media to promote the value of the classes we were providing. In the case of dance and training as a general rule, the obvious benefits are fitness. But there is so much more than that. We also want to talk about the mental health benefits, especially during a period of time where social interaction is minimized and we can't go out as much. There was also the benefits of learning new skills or involving yourselves in new hobbies that were sports or art-centric. One of the most important things to know about building on platforms like this is that if your message or story, your who, your what, and your why isn't strong, people will not believe in or listen to what you have to say. As time went on, we got in contact with blogs, newspapers, and magazines, and these days even more, branching out onto platforms like Clubhouse and Astro to help spread our message. But none of this would have happened if we hadn't had the courage to reach out. The power of social media in the modern age is that it provides anyone the opportunity to get in contact with anyone they want to. At the beginning of February, when we started, we really were nobodies in this space. But as time passed, with carefully planned and organized owned media, we were able to slowly reach larger and larger audiences through class media channels like the ones I've named. Now, I'm not by any means saying that every single person that we have reached has had positive feedback to our messages and ideals, but I'll get into that in a bit. But what I can say with confidence is that we were able to illustrate the importance of our dreams and through this use of media, create harmony within a community that we have helped grow and nurture. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the pros and cons of using media, because for as great as a tool as it is, it does have its pitfalls. I'll start with the cons and we'll end nicely. Often it has the potential to be a little bit incendiary. It can bring awareness, but in some cases also endangers those without proper documentation. It can also be a tool to spread hatred and malicious commentary about certain cultures and religions. Oftentimes, it attracts negative sentiments among those who don't believe in refugee rights, frankly. And social media is an echo chamber. It only shows you what you want to believe, and thus creates a really safe space for hatred to boil and bubble over. We often don't even hear about it because these instances of news don't show up on our own feeds. Some people tend to turn away from content that they deem too graphic or too much, and people don't really want to face what they don't want to deal with. But let's talk a little bit about the nice stuff now. It was absolutely of the most importance in creating awareness for our brand. People will not care about these people's stories if they do not know what they go through. It also helped cultivate and showcase our own personal stories to show the truth behind our actions and where we come from, creating a platform that spreads, in this case, hope. But we also wanted to build a community. And we created a community that doesn't just know about the refugee rights, but now cares about them as well. And I truly believe that. More than anything, we're making a lot of noise. We're inciting change on a larger scale, not just in Malaysia, but hopefully down the line in ASEAN as a whole. Algorithms on Instagram or Facebook can only stop and limit so much information. We're currently building a brand that exceeds expectations and has made waves on much larger platforms that reaches much wider audiences. We've started small, but if you build 1%, you can continue to do so as time goes on.
So let's just talk about why engage the youth. So let's start with our resources. Guidance and advice from older generations is key to us. By bridging the gap, the generation gap, it gives us the opportunity to learn from one another. In order for us to reach harmony in ASEAN, the youth must be open to learning from the older generation and vice versa, to ensure A, we don't repeat the same mistakes, and B, to expand and innovate the older generation's existing ideas for the future. We must listen to one another. Another resource, and as why we want to engage youth, is our education and upbringing. The younger generation nowadays are more conscious of what is going on, socially, environmentally, economically, etc. This is because of the huge role social media plays on their day-to-day. Although social media has a myriad of issues, it also opens up the floor to big conversations. People from around the world are connecting and sharing new ideas about the world, and the youth are right in the middle of that conversation.
In modern terms, our generation is seen as woke. But the other resources that we had were, again, innovation. We had an idea that we felt was good, and we stuck by it, and we ran with it. But when some things weren't working, we took the feedback that we received, and we changed the formula. We changed the approach to something else that might work, and often it did. We were constantly and consistently aiming to improve, and that's an innovation that digital marketing allows. And on that note, the digital age has allowed us to establish and maintain connections all around the world, and we leverage that. We know that we have friends and family overseas, and so do the people who are fundraising for us to build our community further. We use that to push our message beyond the borders of Malaysia, to ASEAN, and even beyond. Creating harmony should begin where you do, but that does not mean that you can't use the same tools to promote it across borders, creating a stronger ASEAN community for us in the future. Now, I won't get into the nitty-gritty of this because I'm sure it will bore a lot of you, but part of our success is the implementation of the new 4 Ps of marketing. With digital marketing taking over the modern age, the classic 4 Ps, product, price, place, and promotion, weren't going to be enough to tell our story. The use of promotion helped us, it was vital in our digital marketing success, but its emphasis has shifted as opposed to the original meaning. Instead of directly promoting a product or solution in the modern framework, it involves activities that direct audiences towards experiences with your brand. With engaging, compelling digital experiences in place, you can then build brand credibility through personalized interactions and a journey that provides a visitor with the content they want when they want it.
1 minute left, guys.
Sorry?
1 minute.
Okay. You know what? I'll skip through this. But a lot of the other things was creating a lot of partnerships and personalizing a lot of the content that we put out. The idea of personalizing content was incredibly important to us because there was no way that we were going to get people on board without making sure that they understand where we came from as well.
So our future plans. We have a myriad of different plans for the next couple of months. This includes in the new future, a women's circle where we will be speaking to young refugee girls about women empowerment and mental health and nutrition. Then we also have donation drives in partnerships with all of these different schools. We are also in partnership with BGBG to create an educational program for a bunch of these refugee kids, and also working with Mind the Gap, another charity organization. In the distant future, we would also we are planning on working with other refugee communities, creating learning opportunities for them, getting more volunteers to teach at the school, and creating partnerships with others with similar values.
We've named our achievements on the screen, and we had over 50 instructors who we have been in contact with and partnerships with multiple companies. But as proud as we are of those achievements, these are really only a testament to the use of social media. The community building, the bridging of gaps are results of the fact that we wanted to create a harmonious group of people who came together with a goal in mind and the drive to achieve it. We're just a motley crew of strong-minded people in their 20s or younger. What I'm trying to say is that when social media is used well and with positive messaging, with a strong brand story and constant engagement, anyone can achieve the things that we are able to do as long as you reach out.
Yes.
All right, wrapping up.
Yeah, we just want to say one really quick thing. So our final message is just make a change, just do it. We all didn't know what we were doing, so we just did it, right? Yeah. 2, take a chance, just do it. 3, manifest your intentions. If you have a goal, you have a purpose, you have the people behind you, you got this. I believe in you.
Have the courage.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ms. Maria and John. Fantastic. Sorry to cut everyone short. Please do know for the audience, we're going to be sharing all of our presentation materials below. So we're not just cutting you off. You won't be at the end of us. You can see what they're going to talk about as well. So we're going to finish up with our speakers, and we're going to start our Q&A session. This is really exciting. We've been receiving fantastic questions in the Q&A box, as well as some curated questions that we received before we started. So our first question is for His Excellency Ambassador Ong Keng Yong. So I can please remind you to keep your answers to 1 minute if you can, 2 minute max. Your question is, one of the answers of the challenges we're currently facing was through digitalization and cooperation. My point is, how do we reach enough equalization of digitalization despite the diversity of culture, norms, and economic standing in ASEAN countries?
Hello, yeah. I think we have to first accept that there will always be different capacity, different capability. Yeah, in other words, there will always be a sense of inequality. Yeah, so what do? We do what we can within the limits that confine us. I don't think that it is impossible for us to overcome some of these different levels of capacity and capability. Some of our ASEAN member states, despite limited resources, have done more than those with a lot more other resources. So it is a case by case. We do what we can. What is the interest of the people? How can we introduce the relevant policy, and more importantly, implement the policy? Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Really appreciate that. Our next question is for Dato Dr. Faisal. So again, 1-2 minutes if you can, please. So your question is, what is the role of the ASEAN youth to mitigate during this pandemic? And what is the responsibility of youth for the post-pandemic to recover the education sector and economy?
Right. Very short. During this pandemic, I think the role of youth is to lead. You'll be surprised with that answer, but that's how I feel it should be. Youth should lead the way. Youth have the capacity, have the ability to lead in this pandemic, simply because this is something new. The virus is new. It's novel coronavirus. Yeah, it's a new virus. We have new norms. We have social norms which have not been there before. It's a lot harder for those who are older to actually adjust, adapt, and comply with the new social norms. It's actually a lot harder for people who have been at work in a certain way for 35 years to suddenly change because of the pandemic, the way they work. So it's actually for the youth to lead. both at the workplace as well as in society, and as well as in adhering to social norms and the new ways of working and the new ways of living. However, there is another aspect to this, and I think this is a very important point to make. Youth can also play a very big and positive advocacy role in this pandemic. Youth can actually talk about the importance of vaccination. Youth can talk about the science behind some of the reasons why there needs to be vaccination to achieve herd immunity. Youth speaking up alone may not work, but youth speaking up together with the official lines from the ministries of health, etc., will help in breaking down the barriers and also breaking down some of the myths surrounding vaccination, which will help overcome the pandemic. Now, post-pandemic, very shortly, I think, as I said in my little remarks, again, because of digitalization, the new technologies that are available, the new ways of working, and the adjustment just now that was needed, the fact that working from home needs discipline of a different kind is something that youth should be able to embark on a lot better and a lot easier than people who are older. And as I've said just now, I think you should, and as Ambassador Ong has emphasized, apart from working in traditional roles, in traditional jobs, youth should also look at becoming more entrepreneurial. Whether that means you actually set up your own business as an SME, or whether you participate in online transactions a lot more, thus invigorating the online economy, that is up to the individual, but you can all play your roles. And last but not least, of course, as I said, youth can actually help invigorate some certain sectors of the economy if we plan properly, especially through youth-led programs. And I see that youth tourism as an avenue for not just youth to look at, but also for countries and perhaps different players in the tourism industry to look at, as a way to reinvigorate the tourism industry post-pandemic. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. I know it was short timing, but really helps. So our third question is for Risa. So your question is, due to the pandemic, we are forced to limit outdoor activities. How will sports still be coherent to building harmony or advance SDGs as an ASEAN level? Does esports count? What do you think? Is there suggestions on what the youth can be doing as a great contribution through sport, but doing it from home during our circumstances?
Yes, thank you, Clara, for the question. So regarding esports, I saw there are many debates about this, but personally, in my opinion, esports also count as sports because research shown that esports can help to people to learn how to work in a team. And also when you're playing esports, you also learn about strategic thinking, right? You have to compete and there's strategy there. And it's actually, there's also research from the UN that say that esports and gaming technologies have the opportunity to help around 2.2 billion people, especially for people that they have access to the internet but not the quality education. So it's something that there's possibility there. And for our friends and you that at home, you can still play sports. So it's actually very simple. So if, for example, you're good at yoga and one of your friends good at dancing, why don't you create an online community and using like platform like Zoom like this or Google Hangout, and you can schedule like a weekly session. For example, you can lead the yoga session and your friend lead the dancing session, and ask more of your friends join you. Start simple, even like 5%, then 10, 20, and you can also use this opportunity to have a support for you, right? So you're not just improving your physical health, but also mental health, and you're also building friendship. And this era of social media is very useful because now you can do it beyond borders, you know, so it's actually also already advancing harmony in ASEAN level. So I think that's all. Start small and act now. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Arisa. Hopefully that helped you all. So our next question is from Dian or for Dian. So the question is, I believe many youth are enthusiastic to contribute and make changes in ASEAN. However, many of the youths, as well as having low accessibility to participate. Some may just not have the privilege to participate due to bad living conditions. Is there any kind of solution for this?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I believe that there's a lot of solution like what we do also in Grid and our member that they can search for fully funding projects that cover the accommodation, also the flights. And also some of our members, they write a proposal for the government, their local government, their university, their schools to get the sporting money for attending like youth exchange or volunteering. So I hope that that everyone can participate through these solutions. Thank you.
Fantastic. That's really, really enlightening. So our next question is for Amira and Jan. So the question is, how can we build awareness about the great importance of SDGs and harmony in the region to people who are not having enough education, who have low literacy, low public service, or have such conversations or conservative stigmas? And please limit to 1 minute. Thank you.
It can be difficult to promote those kinds of messages to people who may not have a complete understanding of what they may entail. That being said, I've done workshops in the past with youth community, not youth communities per se, but youth communities that also included refugee kids or local kids, and doing it in a group community with a lot of different mindsets from a bunch of different schools in this particular instance, helped them understand it from a much, from people of their own age as well. As a general rule, I find it a lot easier for kids to engage when it's people closer to their age, and workshops are a huge, huge help when it comes to that. It's difficult to start implementing those kinds of that kind of information into the schooling system, but if we constantly engage with other organizations to help bring these kids together, then yes, absolutely is possible, and we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes
it's all the different communities together so that they can hop on each other's opinions. I feel like kids, like John said, kids definitely listen to other kids. So you get one kid on board, you'll get 10, and they'll talk.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I agree. So our final question today is again for His Excellency Ambassador Ong Keng Yong. So your question is, in regard to the active participation of youth in policy making, how can we bridge the gap between the government and the youth, acknowledging that there are initiatives like dialogues and all that?
Yeah, I think the important thing is to continue our conversation, the interaction between those who are in government and those not in government must continue. Yeah. Important thing though, we have to talk in a very concise manner, have good ideas, yeah, and do our best to go to the point. Because sometimes when we have dialogue and we have conversation, we tend to confuse a lot of other things. I'd like to suggest that we continue to have communication, to have dialogue. It can be at different level, yeah, starting from at the working level, moving up to the policy level, and also finally the implementation level. So how are we going to pitch our respective ideas at different level with the different people involved? Going forward, it is necessary to talk and engage. So the first thing that we need to do is to stop thinking that we don't have to communicate with one another, or we don't want to listen to one another. There is no way to proceed. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So with that, our Q&A time has finished. Thank you very much, everyone who has participated in the Q&A session. All the questions that have not been answered yet, we will be answering those through email. And thank you to our keynotes and speakers who have been answering them while you've been talking. So I'd also like to thank our speakers for their wonderful presentations and their time. We really hope this webinar will inspire everyone to take part in creating and preserving peace and tolerance in their own communities. And so, as mentioned by our MC earlier, this webinar is part of the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN program, which is a collaborative program by the ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation to empower youth across ASEAN towards inclusive, sustainable development. So if you would like to know more about this program and our upcoming webinars, please do visit our ASEAN Foundation and Maybank Foundation's website and social media handles, and they're on the screen now. So thank you very much for having me. It's been my pleasure to moderate this webinar, and I'll send you back to our MC, Bagas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clara, for your excellent moderating. Before we continue, I would like to once again remind the participants that it is obligatory to complete the survey in order to obtain the e-certificates. The link for the survey can be seen on your screen right now, or please follow the link on the chat box. We will give you 2 minutes to finish the survey. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of today's webinar. To sum up, we hope that this webinar impressed every single one of us to consider peace building through sportsmanship and environmental advocacy. Please stay safe and healthy. Have a glorious day for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the panelists. Well done.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you guys so much for the opportunity.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone. Great teamwork.
Thanks, guys.